What's up, everybody? Bandit and Chad here in the truck to talk about more trucks, because that is what we do. But for Easter Jeep Safari this year, Jeep is bringing a whole range of Gladiators as their concept vehicles. So if you're not familiar with Easter Jeep Safari, basically what it is it's a time where Jeep and Jeep enthusiasts can get together, show off new things that they're considering making, things that they are making, things that are part of the Mopar catalog, and basically just have a big bash overall down in Moab, Utah. I'm sure it's a really fun time if you're a Jeep enthusiast, but for just automotive enthusiasts in general, it's a time where Jeep can display some of the things that they're working on, and we all kind of get a sneak peek. So Jeep has displayed all of their concepts for this year, or what we think is all. They normally surprise us and bring something new to the actual all safari.
Every single year they find a new animal in the safari.
Exactly. But this year, one of the concepts that really piqued our interest is the new Jeep Gladiator J6. And what that is a single cab Jeep Gladiator with a 6-foot bed. The way Jeep was able to do this is they took the normal JL platform, not the JT, not the Gladiator platform, the actual 4-door Wrangler platform, and instead of having a 4-door configuration on it, it's just a 2-door normal truck cab with a 6-foot bed behind it. And they were able to achieve all of this without lengthening the frame, without doing really a whole lot, but they were able basically to get a single cab configuration with a 6-foot bed, and that's really what piqued our interest. A lot of the other concepts are just basically normal 4-door Gladiators with all of those Mopar parts thrown in, different lifts, different tire configurations, and most of it, again, is the Mopar parts. Some of them are some things that they went to the aftermarket for, like the decked bed systems. They did have a bed awning for one of them, you know, a whole host of different setups, but the J6 is really what we're here to talk about today.
So there are a couple different approaches for this J6 and a few different ways that it could happen. So what the reality is and what we want are often two different things. So I'm going to start off with what we, the consumers and the truck enthusiasts, want. So we want that thing to be made. So right now, as far as it seems in the current market, is mid-sized trucks are kind of restricted from being the single cab long bed or even short bed that they used to be. I think 2014 was the last year that the Tacoma was offered with a single cab with a 6-foot bed. So that was the last year, and we had to say goodbye to that. You know, obviously neither of us have those, but that's because we were not given the option to. So there is a possibility that Jeep and Fiat Chrysler are going to try and bring that back in the form of the J6, which we think would be awesome, because not only are they great off-road, but if it's just you, maybe a dog, or again you, somebody else, it's perfect. Bandit has the access cab, obviously, for the Tacoma, which is essentially just a 2-door truck. You can fit people in the back, but for short drives, it's not something you want to do for 3 hours.
And realistically, the back of my truck hauls a little bit of gear at best. You know, maybe a couple of jackets, maybe a duffel bag for a camping trip or something like that. But the real reason I wanted my truck in the configuration I have is for the 6-foot bed. I used it to haul 4-wheelers, I used it to haul dirt bikes in the past, kayaks and the like. Really, if ever I even have a passenger, it's always one other person. Sometimes it's Chad, sometimes it's Chrissy, my girlfriend, sometimes it's you know, another friend or what have you. But I didn't buy my truck to haul people, and honestly, I bought my truck as an excuse not to haul people. You know, Chad and all of my other friends have 4-door vehicles that are way more comfortable, and it kind of gets me out of driving sometimes. But really, for the lifestyle that I live, I like my truck for being more nimble with the shorter wheelbase, and I like my truck for having that 6-foot bed. That was a deal breaker for me. A 5-foot bed simply would not cut it.
Right. So for a lot of the reasons he just listed are some of the ones that other truck enthusiasts and consumers are looking for still to this day, and that can be found in the form of the J6, which, moving to the reality of it, is we probably won't actually ever see that, because the market doesn't, for the most part, does not look for that. If somebody wants to have 4 doors or something bigger, most of the time they do end up moving to a full-size truck. A 4-door long bed Tacoma like what I have is not the most common Tacoma. The same could be said almost for the market when it comes to a J6 or the Jeep Gladiator, most people are going to go for that four-door configuration because of more space, more bodies that you can hold, and everything else that does come with that. So this might be, as Bandit had put it before we started recording, the forbidden fruit when it does come to this concept. And I mean, we might see it one day. It just may be a little while before that does happen.
Now, on the flip side of that, kind of playing devil's advocate here, we were talking about in the last video about the new Jeep truck that we made. The only reason that this really came out is because of all the parts sharing that it had, right? It does share a lot of the rear suspension from the Ram 1500. It has, a lot of parts that's shared there with the normal Wrangler that's, not the original truck. Now, if you look at all of this and realizing that it does share almost all of the components with just a normal four-door JL Wrangler, this is where it could actually make sense for a business case. Now, I've heard that with the Gladiator, the reason they came up with that configuration is because most mid-size truck buyers, to the tune of some 80% of them, do buy a short bed four-door truck, and that's how they came out with it. The problem is that the Gladiator in that configuration is nearly the length of Chad's truck that's a four-door long bed. So, you're basically giving up a foot of bed space. Now, arguably, it is still a more capable truck with the solid axles. We're not trying to say that Chad's truck here is more capable than that truck. We're not here to make those claims.
No, definitely not.
But, if you could have an even more short wheelbase, again, that would be the same wheelbase as the normal JL four-door Wrangler, that could really, entice some people, because you would include people like me who need a 6-foot bed, but also people that are the hardcore off-road enthusiast, where the Gladiator, it's a very capable configuration, but it's not quite what some people would need if they did want to off-road that truck regularly. So the other side of this coin here is actually Jeep can make a business case out of making this thing. So we've talked about it before, but the base Jeep Gladiator does have a V6 and four-wheel drive, but if you compare that to, say, an SR5 Tacoma with the 6-cylinder and the four-wheel drive, the Gladiator is still a little bit more expensive, and that carries all the way through the options and the package range, all the way up to the launch edition Gladiator, which just actually sold out in one day at $62,000 per unit, which is a little bit pricey. Obviously, it is the first of its kind, a highly desirable vehicle at that. But anyhow, if they would come out with the single cab 6-foot bed Gladiator, that could actually help get pricing down a little bit as well and make it even more comparable to the likes of its competition. So basically, a bed is a lot cheaper to create than an enclosed cabin with all the sound insulation, all the extra seats, everything that you'd have. Just a steel bed is a good bit cheaper than that. And if it were to share basically its entire chassis with the JL Wrangler, honestly, it wouldn't take a whole lot for Fiat Chrysler to actually make this thing come alive.
Right, it wouldn't take much at all, and really the way that you go about this whole thing from the consumer point of view is, if people really like it, they vote with their dollars. If the units are bought and aren't sitting there on their lots for months on end, like we see with some models, that is really how we'll be able to tell, and how Jeep and Fiat will be able to tell if the model is something that can survive. Because if you look back in previous years with any manufacturer, some vehicles really only last, whether it's a reliability issue or whether it just looks ugly or it's just not a good platform, it's something that really only lasts for maybe 3 or 4 years, and then they decide to get rid of it because it's too expensive and they're not making their money back on it.
Right, and another thing to think about here, a lot of trucks are made for work, and the Gladiator has shown that, based off its payload towing numbers, it's no exception. It has come ready to play, and it should be a great vehicle for those who buy it. But the other mid-sized trucks in the segment, namely the Tacoma, the Ranger, the Colorado, and the Canyon, and even the Frontier, they can also be used for fleet vehicles. And I don't know of any sensible business person that would buy a Gladiator for your business fleet, unless you're doing some kind of off-road excursion business or something like that. Just your normal plumbers, handymen, that kind of thing. I don't think a Gladiator is probably the vehicle they would choose. So that means, as a consumer and as an enthusiast, the responsibility even falls even more on us. Now, Now, would we buy one? Personally, this J6 is the only one I would consider buying. Like I said, I need that 6-foot bed in my life. I'm not hauling really any people, and for what I'm doing, I think that truck would be great. It would handle all my off-road desires. It would, you know, still be able to haul my four-wheeler and everything like that. Obviously, you see all kinds of these keyboard warriors where, yeah, of course I would buy that, and then when the product actually comes out, you know, all you hear is crickets. So hopefully that's not the case with this thing. Hopefully, if Fiat Chrysler does roll the dice, people do actually buy them, I would likely find my way to the dealer as well, actually. But anyhow, let us know what you all think in the comments below. We do really appreciate your all's support. So if you did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. We have all sorts of content, excuse me, coming out in the very near future. But again, thank you very much for watching. Have a fantastic week, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
See you guys. But the way that you go about it is voting with your dollars, and that's exactly what we would do, because we'll have money for it, maybe.
Right.
If YouTube really takes off.
Yeah. So, oh, crap.
Damn it.
All right, ease it. All right, come on, straighten it out. There you go. All right, you're about to drop on side.